All right.
What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I figured we could talk about Mars turning direct because I've definitely been feeling that the past few days, week, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like we talked about when Mars went retrograde back on October 30th. And for me, back then, it felt like, you're like chugging along in your little sailboat, and then the wind just suddenly stopped.
I don't remember us having that conversation for some reason, but because I'm trying to remember, like, that was like a week before we left Idaho. And so, but you felt like the tired happened back then.
But it
And
wasn't the same. It was like, it just, you're like going along and then just sort of stopped. That's what it felt like to me. But this time it felt like a train ran over me or something. Like it was so much more intense. And I wonder if that's because Mars like slowed down and stopped from our point of
for
view on Earth. And now it's going to stay there and start chugging right along again. But I remember last night I was thinking like, oh, tomorrow I can feel it. I can feel it starting to pick up again, and I'm going to be productive tomorrow.
yeah. Did you see my post on Facebook
Which one?
about Mars retrograde?
For the meeting for today?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see all the comments? Oh yeah, you posted
Yeah.
the link. Okay. See, I
Yeah. We're
still
not alone.
so why like because I still am learning a lot about astrology, and so why would Mars doing that make everyone feel like they need a kick in the pants or like they can't get anything done?
Because Mars is the planet of activity and energy and drive,
Okay.
ambition, getting things done. And so when it turns retrograde, all that energy goes inward. And so when it stops, it's like the energy just it just grinds to a halt. And it absolutely felt that way.
So what's the difference in so is it like the unless you have natal Mars retrograde, right? But a normal person would when Mars is just doing its own thing, all of that you just said, like the ambition, the drive, everything is coming from an external source.
No,
But
it's
if it
like your energy is going more outward.
okay, and so then if it's retrograde,
That energy shifts inward. So with Mars retrograde in Gemini, Gemini is, a very mental planet, and it's like it wants to know all the things and talk to all the people, and it's just a very like busy mental energy. I noticed, at least for myself, when it went retrograde, that kind of mental energy turned inward. So I was feeling kind of a little bit scattered. Like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to research this, and I want to read about this, and kind of like not sticking very long with any one thing. And
okay.
people who have like Gemini placements, especially Gemini suns, would have felt this very intensely, and it might have been even a little bit of a difficult transit for them.
I've been seeing a lot of people posting about feeling like rage or anger when they aren't normally an angry person, which was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting because I didn't really think about. I remember when I'm pretty sure Ali Duzette did a video about Mars retrograde, like right before it happened. And I remember watching that. But I was like not really paying attention to it as it was happening throughout the last couple of months. And then I have noticed in the last few days where I've been feeling exhausted, I've seen other people talk about this rage that they've been having, which I was surprised because my experience with anger in the past, I wondered why I didn't see that coming up in me, but it was manifesting as just like exhaustion. Like we were going to bed at like 8:30. Like, well, I thought it was because we were in a hotel room with our kids. So we
Mhm.
would put them to sleep, and then it was like, what do you do? Because the kids are spread out all over the room. And
Yeah.
so we would end up going to sleep because as soon as the lights went out, I felt that melatonin, like my natural melatonin start rising, and I just couldn't stay awake. So we were going to sleep at like 8:30,
Right.
and I would sleep straight through the night until 6:30 in the morning.
That's what
It
I
was a lot.
should have done. I definitely should have done that, but I was staying up too late still.
Yeah.
I
Huh.
think, well, anger and rage is a side of Mars too. So that's absolutely one way it can manifest. I think it just depends on your frequency, your own Mars placements. Is it like placed well or not? That sort of thing.
Interesting.
I shouldn't say well. There's no bad placement.
Huh.
But I know too, when I tuned into like the collective energy today, it felt I was walking and it felt like walking against like, I don't know, like walking through sludge or something, like just trudging and just like this bone deep fatigue.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know you and I were talking about like we talked about like active rest, right? But
Yeah.
this week you and I were talking about burnout. And I feel like there's some of that burnout going on for people right now. Um, and one thing I was thinking about today, because we've been reading Matthew, and I've been talking to Cheltzey about how I've been listening to this lecture series about the Gospel of Matthew. And one thing he said was that Matthew presented Christ from the most human perspective and is the most human of the four Gospels. And I was thinking about this in connection to like rest and burnout and how like when we deal with these fluctuating energies, we just have to like accept our humanness and like this ebb and flow and just being in the body and being present even when it's you feel exhausted and just going with it, if that makes sense.
So what do you do? Like, I've been thinking about this a lot because when COVID hit, my husband and I, like, we worked harder that year than we had since we had kids. And I felt like, I don't know, because it seemed like all of our friends were home, and he had lost his job in November of 2019. And so I started working for the first time in years, and I was like delivering pizzas. So I was gone because I would work the night shift. So I would be gone until like 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I would come home and I would have to take care of the kids. So I was hardly getting any sleep. And he would go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and be gone until 6. And there was like a 2 hour overlap there. So we weren't seeing each other at all. And it was just crazy because this whole essential worker thing, like because he had gotten a job and we just decided for me to keep my job for a few months in. Anyways, long story short, I was thinking about this week because um people look at what we're doing now, because what we did was we sold our house in April of last year, so it's almost been a year, and we bought this camper and we're just traveling, and we're working, like we're doing things to make money, but it's not a regular 9 to 5 job, which like our family, there's a lot of family members that are like, what the heck? Work is a really important value in my family, but I just felt like after 2020, seeing how many people, like the whole job situation got flipped upside down worldwide. And I was like, what is the point of this work that we're doing? Like when we are exhausted and, like, is it really doing anything in the whole scheme of things? Like, I know you have to provide for your family and stuff, but I just felt like it was so wasteful of our time. But that's the point that I'm trying to make by telling that whole long segue rabbit hole story is, you have to work sometimes, right? Even when your body is like, I can't do it. And now I'm in this place where we are so privileged and blessed that if something comes up where my body is tired, this last week, what we experienced, like before I would have just had to like plow through and keep going. And over time, that causes health conditions,
Mhm.
right? It catches up with you eventually. And so where do we find the balance when the world and the planets are moving around us and causing things like this to happen? Like, do you think that something revolutionary needs to happen again, like even more revolutionary than COVID?
I
Like, do
mean,
you,
I
what
feel
do you
like that's so up to the collective of humanity as a whole, and I really hope that we don't have to choose
think?
that. um,
Do we
but
just
it's
plow
also
through
so,
it?
I think so many people have woken up to that and made those changes though. And I think some people may never choose that, and that's okay too. And it just so depends on the individual because, like you and I, we're projectors, and that's like a non energy type in human design. But the generators and manifestors, like they really can go, go, go a lot more.
Okay.
I'm surrounded by generators in my family. So I
I
see.
need to check what Andrew is. I think he's a manifesting generator, but I don't even know, to be honest. But that's interesting. Because, yeah, like I know if this week would have happened, all of the things, like I know that it wouldn't have been the situation that we had with our camper getting stuck in the mud and us ending up in a hotel room. But if we had had this kind of stuff happening and he was still working a full-time job, like I know that my whole week would have fallen apart. And we just kind of got through it like it was no big deal. And I'm just thinking, how do people survive these, though the part of humanity, like Candace says that she's a generator.
So Candace,
Candace, did
tell
you
us,
feel, yeah, go Catherine.
how are you feeling in the fatigue burnout side of things, like right now, and then also like in general with your work or whatever it is that you do, if you wish to
Uh,
share.
I do wish to share. So I have been like like yeah, really burned out, really unmotivated to do a lot of things, and what something's been interesting. And I don't know if it's Mars or whatnot, but my kids all have been sick. But the only thing that they've been sick is like they've been like throwing up and stuff. But that's the only symptom. And like so random, but all of them have, well, three of four. The other one has an earache. So I'm like, is that like all? But that could also be the solar flares going on too. So like we're getting hit by more than just Mars,
Oh, for sure.
and then Mercury retrograde.
Hmm.
But and then anger. Oh, that's something that is a big issue at our house. Yeah. I'm not typically angry, but my husband is, and so it's a big deal. It's rough sometimes.
Oh man.
Yeah, my son, he had stomach virus all last week too, so that is rough. So generators feeling the burnout too. So it's not just us projectors.
Yeah, it's like I just push through. It's like I'm one of those people that like, okay, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. Might as well just get it done so it's not occupying any brain space. So um and I went through today. I like been looking at it for a while. I help with the local food bank, and so I get food from the food bank. And so today, I actually had the motivation of going through my freezers and getting a garbage bag, anything that was freezer burned and not something that we really, really liked. After all, I went through and put a lot in the trash. So made some space and cleaned something that has been bugging me for quite some time. So
Awesome.
So you're feeling the Mars energy come back too then.
yes.
Awesome.
What else have you noticed going on this week, Catherine?
Let me see. I noticed that with that feeling of like burnout and fatigue, like all that motivation I'd had for like my goals, like just like, oh, and I'm emotional. I'm an emotional projector. So like, yeah, my emotions are like really crazy. And you're not supposed to make any decisions as an emotional authority until the wave of emotion has passed. So there's like a lot of waiting. But I started feeling like, what's the word? Kind of like discouraged. Like, will that forward momentum come back? Will it come back? And I was like, it's only been a few days. Like, calm down. So kind of like the spiritual side of it, like also remembering to like have faith and remember like it's just a moment and it's going to shift and it's going to get better and it's not permanent. That was another thing I was noticing and feeling around me too.
I'm so grateful to be a woman, because a woman who has given birth, because I feel like I lean into that idea so much. Like, this is just the transition, or like it's between contractions, you take your breath, right? And I am like so grateful for that understanding, because when the hard comes, that is what gets me through. Like, just to remember, it is but a moment and there will be breath coming soon. You'll be able to relax. It's just those labor pains.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
grateful for that perspective.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because we were just talking about pregnancy and labor the other day as well.
Oh yeah.
And I'm also someone who gave birth naturally twice. And it's just so funny to hear you talk about it that way because
It wasn't that experience for you.
I'm not signing up for that again anytime soon.
Oh man.
But you know, I think that's some of that like self-mastery. And I've come a long way in that department, but like, yeah, you have to be in that moment and just like breathe,
Yeah,
sit through it.
breathe through it. Candace just talked about the moon, the full moon, and how she felt like it was a loss, not like mourning the loss of a person, but just like it felt like a mourning period. And I actually was thinking about this earlier today. I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel like lately I've been waking up at times and it's like a different world. Do you feel that way? Like
You've
something has
mentioned
shifted overnight?
not like so dramatically like how you describe. I haven't noticed that, but
Okay.
I'll keep paying attention.
Because I don't know, just her saying that about the moon, like
I
feeling like a time of mourning.
Yeah, because the full moon is also like the time of releasing things,
Yeah.
and sometimes we may not be ready to let them go, perhaps. But man, that full moon, that was an intense full moon.
I'm trying to remember. I think we were still in Idaho. This last week has been okay. Does it feel like this has been the longest week of your life?
It has felt really long.
Oh, we've got comments coming in, but I don't know. Like, I feel like I wake up. I felt that way this morning, actually. Like every once in a while, just every couple of weeks, it's like, oh, I wonder what's been going on behind the smoke and mirrors, because something's different this morning. And I do actually, I had that feeling this morning, and then I don't know if you know who Glenn Beck is, but he posted this video today about it's ESG, so it's environmental, social, and government. And the European Union has pretty much passed it. Like, and the way that it will work, there's one hookup that they're having with it that I don't know. Some people want it to go as deep as like banks, but the way that it's set up right now is basically like companies that are producing products, they all have to be on board with all of these environmental, social, and governmental regulations. And so it has to be like low carbon producing. And so if a restaurant is selling French fries, all of their seasoning producers for their French fries and their oil and the potato farmers, like every step of the way, every process that's involved has to be following these regulations.
Wow.
And yeah, it's like mind boggling. I don't know how they would ever regulate it, but they're trying to pass it into their government. So it's just everyone that's involved with the European Union right now. And I don't know if it has something to do with the World Economic Forum, but I did find out that that was going on last night. And so I feel like maybe that has something to do with that feeling that I got when I woke up this morning. But Beth is on.
Hi guys.
I'm reading the comments now.
Yeah.
I just barely found Quick Media like a week ago, so I had not seen that he had been talking about things like that. But
I've not heard of that. What is that?
It's just a YouTube channel. The one that I watched, he does like he talks about just current event kind of stuff, but I think he's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because the one that I watched was talking about how at BYU, which is like a church-owned school, they have teachers that are teaching like that Christ is non-binary. It's yeah,
if you don't mind me, Kevin, he is a member of the church. He has a Come Follow Me series as well. And he interviewed Oaks. He's like the state treasurer of Utah or something, talking about the environmental social engineering or whatever they call it, that stuff coming to America. And I guess that's one of the things he was running on, was being against that.
Interesting.
Marlo, I just remember the first name. So if you look up his interview with Marlo Oaks.
Awesome. So I've watched just a couple of his videos. I didn't know about that channel until really recently, but I don't know. Do you have any more astrology stuff, Catherine, that you were going to talk about?
That was mainly it. That was what had come to mind.
Yeah. Well, Catherine did ask me earlier this week, because we did kind of touch on like what to do when you just have to plow through the exhaustion. And I I went to a conference in way back, like 2012, and the speaker was talking about how it was exercise is what we were talking about. And she said, when you feel like you don't want to exercise, just try 5 minutes. And if you get 5 minutes into it, but you have to put your whole heart into it. That's the thing about it. Like, just convince yourself that I got to do it for 5 minutes. And if 5 minutes in, I feel like I really do not want to do this anymore, I can turn it off and walk away from it without any guilt or anything, and try it again in a few hours, or try it again tomorrow, whatever you need to do. Right. And that has been like a game changer in so many areas of my life. And so Catherine was trying to work on something, and she was like, I'm I'm just so tired. I don't want to do this. Did it help you? Did you try it? The 5-minute thing?
I did, but there was the other issue with that thing. So
Yeah.
that still stopped me.
So
And
the
then I was
other
like, oopsie, it wasn't meant to happen tonight.
other people's agency.
Yes, that's what it
So
was.
sometimes we're not meant to plow through things because other people have their agency, right? And so
Mhm.
move on to something more productive with your time.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. I don't know what time it is. How long have we been talking? I had one more thing that I wanted to talk about if we've got time for it, but
Yeah, it's 9:25, so we still have 15 minutes.
okay. So this is like, I just have been watching for things that I'm seeing happen with a lot of different people. And this came up recently that I've been noticing. So I started walking. I don't really know when because I used to lift weights and I used to do like, I love lifting weights. That was like my go-to exercise until I had Howdy. And then it wasn't working for me anymore for some reason. I wasn't seeing any change physically. And so after I had Howdy, he wanted to be outside all the time as an infant. And I felt like I needed to get my girls out of the house too. And I didn't want to fall into the postpartum stuff that I had had with Harper. And so I started doing this walking like every day. I would go on a really long walk. And I didn't really know people who were doing that. But so since you and I met or like started talking, were you walking before me? Okay.
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So we were talking like every time when Catherine and I, our friendship was being kindled, most of the time when I had time to talk to her was on my walk because it was quiet and my kids weren't with me. And so you were hearing me message you and knew that I was out on my walk. And so is that why you started walking? Because I've never asked you about why you actually started walking.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was trying to think if maybe you had talked to me about it and maybe you had just mentioned it. And so you inspired me to do a lot of things at that time. I started the cold showers because you
Oh,
were like,
maybe we talk about walking as like a form of therapy. I don't remember, but well,
I can't remember, but I started the cold showers first, and then probably a week later, I started the walking, and I've been doing that pretty much daily since then. And now I was even thinking about this just the other day. I was like, how did I like live not walking every day?
right? Okay, so that's the thing is I have noticed in the last like month or so, suddenly I have all of these friends that are out walking and I'm like, what is going on here? And then right before you and I started talking tonight, I saw this guy that was born in 1923, and he was telling like the best advice that he could give. And what he said was go outside, be with nature, go on long walks, and be kind to others. And I was like, okay, what is this theme of walking? Why are so many people starting to walk suddenly when it feels like that's not something that people, at least in my perspective, the people that I know, I don't know a lot of people that just would go on really long walks every day. But do you think that there's something happening in the collective conscious that is causing us all to suddenly start walking for miles a day?
Let me check it out. Yeah, I feel like there is. And it's something like just people raising their vibration. And when that happens, they just want to get outside. They don't want to be stuck inside all day.
I
That's kind
love
of what I'm
that.
feeling.
So I saw today that the pediatric, like I don't remember what the name of the agency is, but like the American Pediatric, whatever it is, they just updated their protocol for what doctors are telling parents to do with their children who are obese, and medication, so basically diet pills and weight loss surgery is the answer.
Oh my
And I
God.
read that and I thought, how horrifying. Like, we just went through these COVID lockdowns and all of these children were kept inside. And so I don't know, to me it felt like those two things, like people getting outside and walking, it feels like, I don't know, I am seeing so much opposition. And I feel like that's the other side of the coin, is like, no, let's just treat it with diet pills and surgery, you know? But it's, to me, I feel like there's this polarity happening, and the answers to our problems are actually quite simple.
Mhm.
Like, if you're struggling, go for a walk, go outside, be in nature. But instead, we're like, no, it's way more complicated than that. Here's some diet pills and you need to sign up for this weight loss surgery. And I
Yeah.
just think we're failing our children by moving away from, I mean, like, our ancestors used to spend so much time outdoors and they didn't have the mental health problems that our children are facing in this day and age. And it's just, I don't know. I'm going down a rabbit hole now, but
I noticed too, like in the past years, I've gotten more sensitive to things like EMFs, like the electromagnetic frequencies. There's like so much in our homes, from electricity, Wi-Fi, radiation, things like that. And I noticed that, like, when I first learned about grounding, like putting your feet on the earth, and being electrically grounded, like I stopped having body aches and things like this. Like my inflammation went away. And I just noticed that, like, I really didn't want to be inside. And that was a big part of it too.
do you feel like you sleep better?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I read something, I'll have to find the quote and pull it up and send it to you, but he said that people who spend so much amount of time outside in the early part of their day, I think is what it said, that they have like 80% better sleep at night. And I've seen that, like, my head hits the pillow and I am out, and I sleep all night long, and it doesn't matter where I sleep. Like, I can be on a really uncomfortable bed, but when I wake up, I feel like I've been rested and that I don't have body aches and stuff. And
Yeah, I've
Can I
noticed
just
that.
tell you that, yeah, like it totally does help your circadian rhythm, because there's certain UV rays that you get before 9 a.m. that help you sleep better. So you need morning sun and you need evening sun to like get
yeah,
that circadian rhythm going. Isn't that so crazy?
I need to do better at evening sun. I love to be outside at the sunset, but I'm usually like cooking dinner and rounding up the kids, and I could do better with that. Are you guys hiding from your kids in the car or are you driving somewhere?
Wrong one. We like literally just got home. I stopped at the mailboxes.
Oh, thanks
Brett's
for tuning
been,
in with us. It's fun to
I
see
was
your
like,
face.
oh shoot, we didn't make it at 8. We were getting Brett dinner. I just picked him up from
I missed
class.
the beginning.
I missed the beginning, so I have to come back and listen to what Katherine was talking about, because I was like, I just want to be their friends. Let's hang out.
Yeah, we'll post the recording.
Do you have any other thoughts?
Did you want to talk about the name today or no?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
So
you can talk about it.
we're gonna turn this into a podcast. We don't know how often we'll be posting. We're aiming for once a week right now, but do you want to talk about the name?
Yeah, okay, I can talk about it. So I love naming things. I'm like kind of obsessed with names, and researching names has been like pretty much a passion of mine since I was a kid. So when something is created, I'm always like, what's the name? And I kept asking Cheltzey, and she was not giving me feedback. So I was just thinking about it on my own. And I was like, okay, God, what's a good name for this? And then I thought, okay, so should I share the story about the gifts?
Yeah.
Okay. So Cheltzey told me something a while back. And can you explain that part? Because I don't remember exactly how.
Yeah. I read a book once that talked about how, actually, I've read multiple books that say the same thing of like people that have had near-death experiences and they've passed on to the other side. And when they get there, there are these rooms that are set apart for us individually that God has created. And they're like filled with gifts. They're like on a shelf in this room that is just for you and it's your treasure. But the gifts on the shelf, you have to ask for them. And so the way that you learn about them is by praying for revelation to know what to ask for. And so I told Catherine, I was like, I did it once a long time ago when I think the book that I read was called, I think it's called The Miracle. It's Lance Richardson. I'm pretty sure it's called The Miracle. It might be called something else. But anyways, he talked about it in that book. And so Catherine and I, we were like, okay, well, we should pray for what gifts he has prepared for us right now. When was that? Probably like October, maybe November.
Yeah, somewhere in there. We have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so really quickly, Catherine got trust and I got obedience or obey. And we were like, what kind of gifts are these? It's like, she's like, I already feel like I'm pretty trusting. And she said, you are like the most obedient person that I know. So what do these gifts mean? And we kind of went on this journey together of discovering what these gifts mean. So then Catherine was thinking of the name the other day, and you tell me how that came about.
And I remembered the gifts we both got. And then suddenly the song Trust and Obey, the hymn, popped into my head, like trust and obey. That one. And then I was like, yeah, but that's a weird name for a podcast. And then I just texted Cheltzey about it, and she was like, I love it. Let's do it.
I loved it so much. I'm so excited about it. I love it.
So I was like, okay, let's do it. And it's funny because I was like, are you sure, God? Like, is there a better name? And then the song just started playing in my head, and I was like, okay, we'll just go with that.
So welcome to our podcast. You guys are our OGs, and we're going to be talking about trusting and obeying and all of the other cool things.
And we realized that in our inaugural video last week, we actually talked about trusting and the, revelation that you receive and obeying it. And we hadn't planned that at all. We didn't even know about the name yet.
It's like someone that was guiding us to do this knew what he was doing.
Right.
Anyways, should we call it before